Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel. So, Halo Infinite Season 2 is out, and I'm here to talk about the good, the bad, and the meh. Honestly, meh somewhat sums up my opinion of this season's launch, but I assure you, this isn't just gonna be like an overly negative, oh, doom and gloom video. That's not my thing. You guys already know that liking and subscribing feeds the algorithm gods. I'll just hop straight into this little rambler. So, the first thing I'll start with is this. I think that this launch was a step in the right direction, but the brutal truth is we need leaps and strides, not baby steps. The good news is 343 seems to understand this, and what they said in their stream was definitely relief. I like that they're not restricting themselves to the launch of seasons. That is a very good thing, and their drop pod system is a great idea. So for those of you that don't know or not in the loop, the way 343 is handling adding content into the game is pretty simple. The second it is ready, bam, they send it. They give it to us in a quote-unquote drop pod, and that's the content we get. I think this is a good approach, because this season is really bare bones. One thing I will say, though, is that people are being a little more dramatic than they should, saying things like, Season 2 was not enough to hold Halo Infinite up for 6 months, there's gonna be no interest in the game, Halo Infinite is dying, blah 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 blah, and they conveniently ignore the drop pods, among other things. They talk about, you know, as I said, how Infinite's dying, and Infinite is dead, and I have a few things I want to say to this. Yes, Season 2's launch has been meh. But we are on day 2 as of recording this, and not a single drop pod has been released yet. Before we cast overall judgment, let's just see how drop pod 1 goes and how frequently they wind up sending them to us. Also, the community is kind of in a self-fulfilling prophecy by saying Halo Infinite is dead. If all you are is negative and pessimistic, saying Infinite is dead or dying, you are actively contributing to the game's decline, because people see everyone's saying, the game's bad, the game's dead, the game's dying, and they're turned away from it. The amount of people I've seen turning away from Infinite purely because of how negative and unfun the Halo community is right now is about the same as the people I've seen leaving due to a lack of content in the game. And some pretty prominent people are basically leaving for both reasons. I mean, like, my buddy Dashy Jinx, who you have seen with Installation 00 on the Cartographer series, his love for Halo kind of got turned off because of how the community was being. And now with Season 2, with the way Infinite is going, and the community on top of that, he's kind of just turned away from it, from Halo, and it's really sad to see. So yeah, like, we gotta stop being dramatic. At the same time, that doesn't mean pretend everything is fine. Absolutely speak up and voice what the issues are. Don't just be a dramatic ass. I'm sorry, there's no other way for me to put it. You hurt the game more by making the whole situation into a soap opera. That's all I'll say on that, and I hope I didn't ruffle too many feathers there. Like, just constructive criticism, explain what is wrong. Don't scream. Alright. Let's talk about the rest of the deets for the season. First and foremost, I'm very glad there's a narrative now. I like the concept of the wolves. They're like extreme headhunters. Headhunters are essentially get in, complete your objective, get out, or die. The wolves are get in there and stay in there for long periods of time. I like this scrappy, materialistic vibe they have, and that seems to be a theme of this season, taking junk and using it for your benefit, that jazz. But I have criticisms to make. So, firstly, I'm not going to give my opinions on the lore or break it down. I want to focus on how they're telling it to us, how they're presenting it to us. They're basically shoving in the last Spartan standing game mode as the gameplay element for the story, and I don't appreciate that. I get that resources are tight, but I was hoping for something better. This story's just, uh-oh, red Angie AI, better go play multiplayer to distract it, Like, okay, cool, kinda boring, okay. I don't like using the word lazy to describe things like this because it's extremely disrespectful to developers breaking their backs to work on games, but I will say it's uninspired. I'm all for integrating the lore with the multiplayer. I mean, Halo 4 and 5 did that well, the war games, but 343 basically just did what R6 Extraction did by making a simple game mode or game type and then being like, there's a story! I don't appreciate that. Or maybe a better analogy is Titanfall 1, and to be clear, I love Titanfall 1, but there's a reason they made a single-player story in the sequel, and that was people didn't respond well to them cramming a story into a game mode. Like, they were basically like, shit, we've got a game mode, but what's the story? And that's basically Titanfall 1. And so they just added a story into it. Like, 343, you guys created one of Halo's best and most addicting PvE combat loops with the Halo Infinite campaign. People wanted to play co-op before, but now people are, like, begging for it. It is just that good. Why not make a very basic firefight game mode? I mean, you have what you need. What if you took the House of Reckoning segments and turned it into a firefight mode? I mean, firstly, it wouldn't be the first time a Halo game has done this. Both Halo Reach and both Halo Reach and ODST took segments of the campaign and used them for firefight maps. And, of course, the AI have already been adjusted for these presumed maps, quote-unquote. Their pathing is there, the behavior works fine because the campaign already has it all. What is stopping you from doing what ODST did? Take this part of the campaign and turn it into firefight. Maybe you could change the interior a little bit to say this is a separate House of Reckoning. I don't know. You could say that the facilities are like the House of Reckoning, that they're common practice in Banished Hell territory, and you're basically raiding these facilities to save captive Marines, or perhaps this is a simulation of what it's like for when you're captured, like, you know, seer kind of things. Or you could include that as part of your narrative event. I mean, things like that. And I would argue it would be more immersive than just say, go play PvP. I also dislike that the bulk of the new lore doesn't come from an actual story. It comes from cannon fodders and item descriptions. Like, the actual story of the season so far is 2 cutscenes. And that's it. And this is a me thing, but it kind of takes away my interest that I have to play Last Spartan Standing to progress. Like, I think it's a good game mode, I guess. It's new, it's innovative, it's neat, and it's creative. It's cool. I'm glad people seem to like it. It's just not for me, and it's not for everyone. So, yeah, I just don't have fun with it, and the fact that I have to play it to progress in this quote-unquote story is a turnoff. It's unfun. It makes me just want to wait until Halopedia puts up a summary later on. That's pretty much my biggest issue with the season, to be honest. I think that they could tell the story a lot better, but you know what? Like I said, it's only day 2. I won't cast the final judgment until their story is completed. Now for the gameplay itself. I want to start with a positive. I love the maps. The new maps are amazing, unique, and most importantly, they are so fun. Catalyst is gorgeous. Everything about it just makes me feel really warm inside. The beautiful blend of Forerunner architecture and nature, it captures the feelings that I had on Requiem, the Ark, Delta Halo, that mysterious feeling that is so alive yet empty. You wonder, what happened here? What purpose did this facility serve? And you go outside and you get this awesome view of the desert, with rivers and canyons running through them, birds are flying in the distance, and the sunset is phenomenal. It's just gives this structure like an oasis type feel, an abandoned Forerunner facility that like all the fauna and flora of the planet shelter in because it's, you know, a nice, easy, sheltered spot. Breaker is awesome too. It captures the identity of the Banished. This is a former UNSC bastion, glassed by the Covenant during the war. The Banished have built a huge fortress on the decaying bones of this world, scrapping and salvaging UNSC ships and buildings to add, you know, raw material to their war machine. There's also a lot of small details on the maps, specifically with the audio. Different parts of a map will lead you to hearing different things. On Breaker, there are like these vents or chutes you could fall down, and, you know, it could just be a soundless little slide thing, like, you know, a normal video game. But 343 actually took the time to, like, every time you hit a wall or make a bump on the way down, like, it actually sounds like you're clumsily going down a chute or a vent, and it's really cool. And it's a detail they totally didn't even have to add. I like the death beam on Breaker. It's super unique. We haven't really had things like this in Halo before, where the map elements of the map itself could pose a threat. I mean, obviously we've had you could fall off the map, but we've never had something that could actually move and threaten you. And that's really cool. I would love to see stuff like that in future maps. Breaker is also unique for BTB map because it's like very tight. Other BTB maps in Halo, they have their small CQC sections, but they're pretty much just giant open spaces for the vehicles with like a few lanes. Breaker is different because it does still technically have that 3-lane approach, right? But the difference is that the 3 lanes, there's one giant lane in the middle where all the vehicles go through. And then the side lanes are kind of like for players that want to flank around. And there's also depth to those lanes. You could go over, under, around, through. Like, there's different floors. Same thing on Catalyst. It's not like the typical 3-lane map that you see in your modern FPS shooter. I mean, Call of Duty is notorious for this, and it's far from the only example. And Halo Infinite kind of suffers from the same issue, to be honest. I mean, I love its maps, but at the end of the day, they're mostly simple 3-lane maps, so Catalyst and Breaker being these different multi-leveled maps with different vantage points and routes that you could go to, going over, under, around, through, that's awesome. And honestly, just overall, if every single map we get from here on out are as good quality as Catalyst and Breaker, I'm glad to wait. Quality over quantity on all that jazz. What about vehicles? I mean, I don't have much to say here, but I am really glad the Chopper's back to being an absolute menace to vehicles, which is just, yes, so satisfying. More tweaks need to happen before I will say that vehicle balance as a whole is perfect. It's definitely getting there. It's almost there, actually, I would argue. I think the biggest issue is just, where are the heavy vehicles? Like, even though they up the spawn rate, I think I can count on one hand how many times I've used the Scorpion, and we are like 6 months into Halo Infinite. In PvP, that is. So, yeah. Okay. This is the negative things. So, firstly, I'll be blunt here. 343 dropped the ball in a few ways. First and foremost, I think this is the big one that highlights a pretty big issue. The Mangler nerf. 343 has this really bad habit of not just correcting. They don't just correct when addressing criticism. They overcorrect. They go way too far. They tunnel vision the criticism, and they try so hard to address the criticism totally and completely without, like, looking at the wider picture, and that at times can hurt the game. And the Mangler is a good example. Basically, there was, for those of you that weren't, like, paying attention or just didn't care, there was this really big divide between competitive and casual community players. The competitive players, they wanted the Mangler nerfed, specifically the melee bonus that it has. Casual players, myself included, really liked the Mangler the way it was, and they didn't want it nerfed. The problem was that the group complaining about the Mangler itself was the loudest. A very simple solution that would have made everyone happy would have just been to compromise. Keep the Mangler stats the same, maybe make it spawn less in competitive, or remove it altogether from competitive. Or you could have separate stats for competitive and casual playlists. I mean, maybe the Mangler just does less melee damage in competitive. There could be more But overall, the point I want to make is that there were options. 343 had options that would have satisfied both parties. Instead, 343 decided to ignore the big, overwhelming number of people that loved the way the Mangler was, and tunnel visioned the mindless screaming, and did a 10% damage nerf across the board. Like, huh? And to add insult to injury, completely caving in to competitive players, the battle rifle's melee remained the same. Not only did they completely sidestep a very simple compromise, they completely caved into the demands of a small but very visible section of the community. And that is the problem. 343 doesn't look at the overall picture. It looks at who was the loudest and tunnel visions them. Which sucks because they can compromise. We know they can compromise. They fixed the sprint debate. For God's sake. The fucking sprint debate. They fixed the sprint debate. And it also seems like 343 almost gets paranoid about things at times, like overly so. Like they worry that people might view certain things as the game's broken and targets those things when they shouldn't. I mean, not only did the Mangler nerf happen, skill jump speedrun strats, the tank gun, wacky things you could do with the physics engine, all of them just got squashed like bugs in favor of targeting other issues, like, you know, hit reg, weapon stuttering, the absurd amount of time it takes for the menu to load anything. And what makes it worse is the overall community liked all of those things. They don't affect Infinite's quality of life, which, by the words of 343, is their focus. Quality of life is their focus. You just look at the stream. They said it themselves. The tank gun is totally optional, and you'd have to go out of your way to grab it. It did not affect your average run at all. And the best part was it was fun. I mean, remember the Scarab gun? I remember the Scarab gun. That shit was awesome. Broken, powerful, completely out of the way as well. The only way you could get it is if you go out of your way as a player to grab it. Why did you grab it? To have fun. The wacky things you could do with a physics engine, like launching yourself across the campaign map with a fusion coil, using steep slopes and inclines as slides to give you a ludicrous boost of speed. Those things were fun. You didn't have to do it. You only did it when you deliberately wanted to do it. And it gave the speedrunning community some really unique stuff to work with, and made speedrunning really fun. Like, we should celebrate insane speedrunning strats and wacky things. We should celebrate finding weird and unintended ways to traverse the maps of Halo by messing with a physics engine, discovering skill jumps, or, you know, finding unintended things like the tank gun. These unintended things, these wacky, fun side things, have been a core part of Halo's community since 2007. Actually, some of them from 2001, you know, before I was even alive. Why take these out? It makes no sense. It not only hurts the game, which is already hurting, it hurts 343's image as a developer. It kind of makes them seem like a developer that hates fun. And I'm not saying 343 hates fun or is petty or is a bad dev. There are amazing, kind, passionate people who love Halo, who also happen to be in a very shitty situation. And honestly, that brings me to my last point, and this is to 343 directly. If you guys somehow see this, okay, guys, I love you. I love y'all. I do. I see your passion. I see you. I think that you are capable of amazing things. I know you are. I've seen what you can do. Halo Infinite's campaign, for example. But, look, at this point, we need more than a roadmap. We need more than statements and acknowledgements. Normally, I'm not one to say Halo needs this or the community needs that. I won't say these things unless I truly, truly believe it. Halo, its community, and you need this. It needs an open talk. You need to tell us how and why we got to this point. We need to know exactly what went wrong and why everything fell apart behind the scenes. Because at this point, there's no denying it. We know something fucked happened. We know there is something going on behind the scenes that has completely disrupted everything. What it is, who knows? To what extent it is, who knows? But, you know, right now, when you say nothing, it makes it look and feel way worse than it is. So, no half measures, no crappy half explanations. You need to tell us everything that happened, and tell us what you are going to do, not just for the game, but for yourselves. Yes, you should never work the team to death. I mean, Joe Staten's on the team. He can attest to the hell that Halo 2 was. But you need to tell us how you're going to reorganize yourselves going forward. Maybe if you do all that, and honestly, actually no, if you do all that, I think it would go a long way. And I think it would also help you guys, just like knowing that the players understand what is happening for you guys, because it hasn't been easy for you guys either, I'm sure. Like, just like how the community is tired and, I guess, jaded, you guys must be having it awful behind the scenes. I mean, between all the constant screaming from the community and all the stress and the big amount of work you guys gotta do, yeah, like, I'd imagine that must be really fucking stressful. So, the best thing I think you could do right now is not just hunker down and keep working. I think you should talk to us and explain what happened. And yeah, alright. That's all I gotta say for this video. I will see you in the Cosmos, friends.